After Momo's grandmother temporarily suppresses the evil spirit within Okarun, she says that a game of tag may be the key to defeating it for good. Welcome to Dandadan episode 3. It's a granny versus granny clash. In this episode, we finally get to see Momo's grandmother. I'm so excited for all of you anime only Dandadan enjoyers finally getting to see how she is. She's freaking awesome. So we actually start off this episode with Granny Ayase. We don't get to see what she looks like just yet because she's wearing robes and a mask, and she's going by the name Santa Dororia, and she's on this broadcast where she is basically using her psychic powers to figure out this celebrity, this idol. She basically says, you're 27, and he says, no, I'm 20. You have a wife and kid? He says, no, I live alone. Says, your favorite food is curry? He says, no, it's ramen. Basically, everything that she's predicting about this guy is wrong. And then we cut to backstage where the producers are like, should we be airing this? Because everything she got is wrong. And the director is like, it doesn't matter. Like, we're on a small broadcast anyways. No one's going to care. And then Granny gets to ride home. And on the way, the taxi driver basically says, hey, aren't you Santa Doraria? Do you have psychic powers? And she tells him to stop the car, and she starts getting out. He thinks it's because she's upset with his questions. And she just tells him straight up, if I were you, I'd get the hell out of here before I get hurt. So he drives off. And it turns out that it's not because of the questions, but it's because in front of her is a turbo granny possessed Okarun getting ready to eat Momo. And this guy can't see it. I guess normal people can't see it in this area. And this is when we finally get to see what Granny Ayase actually looks like. She's badass. I freaking love her. So this is Granny Ayase, aka Seiko. And Seiko basically uses a talisman and a nail to knock Turbo Granny off of Momo. And then Turbo Granny obviously tries to attack and can't because there's a barrier. It turns out that she has trapped Granny in another barrier. Seiko starts explaining the powers and stuff. Basically, there's this barrier that she drew with her bat. And I thought this is kind of cool. She basically has a baseball bat that she uses as a weapon, but at the top, there's like this little opening, and it will basically be like the tip of a pencil, and she uses that to like draw barriers and stuff. So basically, she drew a circle around herself with a nail inside, hammered into the ground. And by doing that, she's created a protective barrier around herself. Anything that tries to attack her will be repelled. As for Turbo Granny, she has drawn a circle around her with a nail hammered outside the barrier. And with the nail being outside, basically what it does is it puts a barrier around Turbo Granny, and if Turbo Granny tries to escape, she'll get burned. So it's basically a barrier that traps things inside. Seiko basically kind of taunts Turbo Granny. We have like a funny moment where Turbo Granny calls Seiko an old hag, and Seiko's like, an old hag shouldn't be calling another old hag an old hag. Yeah, Seiko just starts wailing on Turbo Granny because there's nothing Turbo Granny can do about this. And then we cut to Momo waking up in bed. And I like that, like, Momo's first thought is, what happened to Okarun? Is he okay? It's like just a nice little touch because these characters are technically strangers for the most part. I mean, they only just met each other the day before, but all that they've gone through has already created like a bond between the two. I don't know. I just think it's a nice touch that, like, hey, the last thing I remembered was my new friends turning into a demon before I passed out. Is he okay? So she rushes downstairs, sees her grandmother watching one of her sitcoms, and basically her grandma's like, hey, you went to a spirit hotspot, didn't you? And Momo's like, yeah, well, no, not really. Like, I didn't go, but a friend of mine did. Have you seen him? And Seiko just says, if you're talking about the evil spirit, I killed it. And of course, this freaks out Momo because Momo doesn't want Okarun to die. It's not his fault that he's possessed by the curse. And so Momo gets upset, and Seiko's like, why are you getting upset? Like, I'm just a fake medium anyways, right? There's no such things as ghosts, and I don't have any psychic powers. Basically, she's still upset that Momo called her out a long time ago. And we saw that before in the previous episode where Momo was telling Okarun about how she got upset with Grandma and called her a fake because the boys were teasing her and stuff. So Seiko is still holding a grudge against that. We have like a funny moment where Momo's like, how long are you going to hold that grudge, you scummy old hag? But eventually Momo kneels down and bows and apologizes and asks, where is Okarun? And Seiko tells her he's in the shrine. So we have Momo rushing towards the shrine. She is freaking out because she doesn't want anything to happen to Okarun. She thinks that, maybe Okarun is dead. We even get like flashes where we see like conversations that they've had earlier about how Okarun went after Momo because he didn't want to ruin this chance at making a new friend because he's never had a friend before. She basically runs over to the shrine, whips the shrine door open, sees Okarun just chilling inside, eating a rice ball, and then she slams it shut and starts banging on the door, pissed off that she got all emotional about this guy. And Okarun is obviously super excited that Momo's there, that she's alive, that she's okay. He starts apologizing. And that's when Seiko shows up and kind of teases Momo. And it's like, since when have you started being friends with monsters? And Momo's like, why did you tell me that you killed him? And Seiko's just like, you seem pretty desperate. So you're into brats like this? Basically teasing Momo that the only reason Momo's doing this is because she has a crush on this kid. Basically, Momo explains that, it's not like that. Basically, like, I have psychic powers after being abducted by a UFO, and I'm the only one that can hold back his curse. And Seiko just point blank says there's no such thing as UFOs. And Momo's just like, yeah, that's what I thought too. Like, I had the same reaction, but then I got abducted, so they're real. Anyways, I have psychic powers now. And then Seiko kind of just explains what Turbo Granny is, that in the past, she used to be called the 100-kilo Granny. But there's more to it than just what Seiko says. I'll just leave it at that. And Seiko basically explains that there are hot spots. There are basically spots where spirits have invaded like a location. And they've kind of like combined with that location. And when they're in that location, they become stronger. And she explains that she went to the tunnel where Turbo Granny like inhabited before. And the presence was so strong that she couldn't even enter the tunnel. But the thing is that there's actually another presence within the tunnel. Like, it wasn't just Turbo Granny in this area. There was actually another spirit that was attached to this location. And that spirit had merged with Turbo Granny and made her super strong. And Momo basically explains that, whenever I'm confused, I'm at a loss, I just think about what the Mr. Kin I love would do at times like this. Kind of like, what would Jesus do? Only for Momo's, what would Ken do? And she's like, I can't just abandon Okarun. Like, I have to help him out. And we get another reaction where Seiko's like, so you're totally in love with that kid? And she's like, no, that's not what I mean. It's not that kid that I'm talking about. And I just love Seiko's expression here. It totally looks like the same expression that Momo had in the previous episode. I freaking love these two. And she basically explains, well, if you want to defeat the curse, you gotta beat Granny in a race. You gotta outrace her. I think a few random taunts and Granny will sure to be taking on that challenge. Basically, what you got to do is you got to drag it outside of its territory. Once you drag it outside of its territory, it'll lose some of its powers and you should be able to defeat it. And Momo's like, well, like, look at these feeble legs. Like, there's no way I can do it. Why don't you put up a talisman like you did in our shrine? And Seiko explains that my barrier spells borrow powers of the gods that live on this land. So I'm only as strong as I am because the gods are giving me powers. I'm borrowing their powers. I can't do that on Granny's home turf. You have to drag her out of her tunnel, of her location. But as it's pointed out, he has like no stamina. There's no way he's going to be able to outrun Turbo Granny. So Seiko basically says, well, get to working out. I want you to do 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats. Like, just keep doing these. Basically, the One Punch Man routine. She just basically explains you need to get stronger, Okarun. You need to boost up your stamina, boost up your leg speed. And Momo, you need to work on your psychic powers. I'm not going to be able to be of any help to you. You guys just simply have to get stronger. And she leaves. And then that's when we get like this sweet moment with Momo and Okarun, where Okarun basically apologizes. I was honestly too desperate to think of anyone other than myself. And I promise you that that won't happen again and that I will do my best to help you out. Basically, like, Miss Ayase, you were different. Like, you saved me and you defeated the monsters. Something like that happens again, I'll do my best so that I can save you. So please don't be disappointed in me and don't stop being my friend. And Momo says, I won't be disappointed. You gotta stop overthinking. And we just have like this silence. And then all of a sudden, Okarun just turns to Momo, starts yelling, why did you slam the door earlier? It's because you were disappointed in me, weren't you? And then they kind of calm down, and Momo's like, you were pretty awesome as well. Like, you were pretty awesome when you were fighting. But you're kind of dense, Okarun. And I'll probably be saving you next time, too. I love this, because it's a running gag where Momo talks about how awesome she is, and then when other people bring up good points about Momo, she just says, "Yeah, I know." It's something that happens a lot in the manga where like you'll have a character say like, "Wow, Momo, you're badass," and Momo's like, "Yeah, I know, I'm badass." And it's just a little character trait, but I just freaking love it. Like I love like her little smugness. It's done in such a way that is endearing rather than being like annoying. But yeah, they just basically share a little moment. And then we cut to the next morning where Momo is eating breakfast. And I like how every time when we see Momo, like she's wearing a different outfit. Like I mentioned this in the previous episode, but it's just this little touch that the manga does as well, where the characters don't wear the same clothes all the time. The only time they do is when they go to school. Obviously, they're wearing the school uniform. But outside of school, they wear different clothes because that's what real people do. It's just this little thing where you don't see it much. Like they easily could have done like the Western cartoon thing where you just have the characters wear the same clothes all the time. That way you can recycle the same like animation over and over again and not have to constantly like redraw things with different outfits. But no, here they go full blown adapting the manga in the different outfits. So and Momo just has like a really badass style in my opinion. I love all her outfits. But we see Seiko and she's watching TV and we see the idol, the celebrity that she had been on with earlier, the broadcast. And basically it's breaking news. And it turns out that this idol was lying about his age. He's actually not 20, he's actually 27. And he actually is married with the kid. It's just, I guess the marriage certificate was never officially signed, but he does have a kid. And then we just see Seiko and she's like, they gotta also change it so that his favorite food is curry and not ramen. So basically, it turns out that Seiko was right the entire time. So earlier, it's set up to make it seem like she's like this phony. But no, she had it correct the entire time. This guy was just lying. And then we immediately cut to Okarun doing like a weird dance. Basically, he's doing the potty dance because he really needs to go. He's like on the verge of crapping his pants. And Momo is like doing everything that she can to hold back the curse. And we basically get a little bit of an explanation about Momo's psychic abilities because she's explaining it to her grandma. And she basically says that she can kind of like see auras. And so she sees like this weird aura around Okarun. And all she does is she visualizes like these psychic hands going around the aura and containing it. And when she visualizes that, the curse on Okarun stops spreading. And she sees these auras in everything, not just on Okarun and Turbo Granny, but she also sees it in like rocks. And so basically what she's doing is she visualizes that she's picking up the aura of like a rock, and then the rock gets picked up. So that's how her psychic powers work. And Seiko is kind of like, oh, I thought it would be stronger than that. Anyways, like close your eyes, because the thing is that you gotta learn to strain your psychic powers. Like you don't need to actually visually see it with your eyes. You just need to feel it. Like you say that it's an aura, right? So you should be able to see the aura even with your eyes closed and try containing it that way. So we have a moment where Momo closes her eyes and then we see her visualizing the auras, and she sees Turbo Granny and she visualizes putting her psychic hands around Turbo Granny. She explains how cold it is. But then when she opens up her eyes, she sees that Okarun has turned full blown into Turbo Granny. So basically it failed. He's transformed. And basically, they realize that, crap, I have to keep my eyes on him at all times. Like, I can't use my psychic powers on things that I can't see at this point in time. Like, I have to visually see it and keep my eyes on it for my psychic powers to work. Which means that right now, Okarun has to go to the bathroom, but I have to visually be watching him to contain the curse, which means that I'm going to have to be watching him as he goes to the bathroom. And we just have like a funny moment where Okarun's like, screw this, I really gotta go. So he tries to rush into the house, but Momo puts up a barrier. And she's like, you got some nerve trying to take a dump in someone else's house, punk. And Okarun's, he's just too desperate. So he starts running. And Momo starts running too. Like basically she's trying to prevent him from getting in the house. Like it's just like a really dumb moment, but it's just hilarious. Like the two of them are yelling back and forth. All of a sudden Seiko's like, I want to get in on this too. So she starts running after them, and we have like a moment where Momo's like riding piggyback on Okarun, trying to stop him as he's trying to rush into the house so that he can take a shit. And basically, we have a moment where Okarun is in the house and he's running, and Momo and Seiko are rushing after him. And Seiko says, "Not bad, Ken Takakura." And Seiko saying that name causes Momo to like instantly fangirl. She just falls. And so it's just Seiko and Okarun battling it out as they're running. And then we immediately cut to Okarun on the toilet, humiliated, as Momo stands outside the open door watching him poop. And she's like, you think this is humiliating? Speak for yourself. And eventually we get this like red flash. And then we see like it's almost like time has frozen. Seiko was just leaning against the wall, not reacting to Momo talking to her. And we see blood start dripping from her nose, from her ears. And she, of course, starts freaking out. And she looks into the bathroom and she sees Turbo Granny. And Turbo Granny basically says, I'm letting your grandma choose her cause of death. Is it going to be a heart attack or a stroke? My curse is contagious to this brat. Basically, anything that Okarun sees, I can curse them to death. Don't underestimate me. I'm not going to give you time to get stronger. I need you to come to the tunnel tonight. Otherwise, this brat's going to die from the curse, and everyone around this brat's going to die as well, including your grandma. So basically, we now have a ticking clock where they're not going to be able to try to strain their power, strain their stamina and stuff. They have to go take out Granny tonight. All of a sudden, the door closes and then it opens and time unfreezes. And Momo basically explains to Seiko everything that happens. And that's when we cut to later that night where we see Okarun and Momo basically wearing these like old traditional robes and stuff. And it's supposed to like give them protection from evil spirits. But Momo thinks that she looks like an idiot in this outfit. But Seiko's basically forcing them to wear this clothing, and then she's kind of doing like a prayer. She's kind of just blessing them and trying to give them as much as she can to help them out on this little quest. So they start to leave. We have the sweet moment where as Okarun and Momo are walking away, Seiko, like we just see her expression, and then all of a sudden she calls Momo, and she wraps her arms around Momo and basically hugs her and says, "Don't die." And I thought this was like a sweet little moment. It's basically showing that even though they're constantly like yelling at each other and bantering with each other, that they actually really do give a crap about each other. And then as they're bicycling away, we hear Seiko basically say, I beg you, please protect those two. So once again, we see how much Seiko cares for her granddaughter and stuff. And then we immediately jump cut to Momo and Okarun in a train wearing the crazy outfits while everyone is kind of like looking at them. And Okarun is just so embarrassed that, why do we have to go by train where everyone can see us? And Momo's like, it's too far with bicycle and we don't want to use up all your stamina before we get there. And Momo's just like psyched up because she's like, that hag tried to hurt something dear to me. And we see her like visualizing her grandma. So like, I'm going to beat Turbo Granny into a pulp. And then we cut to the credits, but there's actually a post-credit scene where we see Okarun basically chilling out in the back, and he's shielding Momo as Momo is taking her clothes off and she's putting on her own clothes. Basically, Okarun's like, should we be doing that? Because this battle uniform protects us from evil spirits, right? Your grandma said to keep it on. And Momo's like, who the hell would wear something like that? Fashion is the battle uniform for Gyarus. I can't get hyped up unless I'm wearing the clothes I want to wear. And this is actually a bonus segment in the Dandadan volumes. So in the volumes that you can buy for the Dandadan manga, there's like little bonus sections where it would be like a tiny short story or a short scene that's not in the actual main story. This is actually a bonus. So I thought that was kind of cool that they're actually adapting. Even the little bonus scenes are getting their own like little adaptations in here as post-credit scenes. I think that's kind of cool. So yeah, that's the end of the episode. And I freaking love it. This is like one of my favorite series ever. And I am so happy that it seems to be getting faithfully adapted. And not only that, but that Science Saru is just, you can tell that just the level of detail that they're putting into this, that they actually care for what they're adapting. Because they could have just easily half-assed this and just hoped that the name of Dandadan would be enough. But no, like they're putting their heart and soul into this, and it's great. Like I love the animation. I love the characters. Like even just the small touches that they have here. The coloring is great. The way that they're editing it, like they go from like this really serious dramatic moment and then instant jump cut into a comedy visual gag. The series has been nailing it. I have no complaints about this series so far at all. Like it is freaking awesome. I love this. This was less of an action-packed episode and just more of like the falling out of what happened in the previous episode, as well as just more character development. We get introduced to Granny Ayase, aka Seiko, aka the amazing GILF. And that's like another thing that the series is awesome with, is its characters. And I'll say this, there's going to be characters that are going to get introduced that might put you off at first, because it did for me when I was reading the manga. But keep with it and you'll grow to love these characters. Like even the characters that start off as annoying and seem like your typical cliche stereotype, there's actually a lot of layers to them, and you'll grow to love them. So yeah, I love how like it sets up that, oh, Granny's gonna be like this old grandma who has like old traditions, wears the Miko outfit kind of stuff. We even see her earlier, and all her guesses, all her premonitions about this celebrity are wrong. And it turns out that she's actually this smoking hot granny who knows her shit when it comes to the psychic world and stuff. And everything that she predicted was right. She knows how to fight. She can hold her own. It's just one of those things where it sets it up to be one way, and then it just pulls the rug out from under you, and it's actually a different way. And we're going to get a lot of that in this series. There's a lot of things where they set it up to be one way, and then it turns out that, nope, it wasn't what you thought it was going to be. So yeah, I'm kind of rambling at this point, but there you go. There's Dandadan episode 3. It's a granny versus granny clash. I loved it. Hope you enjoyed. Hope to see you next time. Take care. Later. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, I still want to thank you for watching it this far, and I hope the next one is more to your liking. With that said, thank you once again, and I hope you guys and gals have a good one. Later.